Hungary. The UN has called the war in Ukraine an opportunity for human traffickers. Children, along with their mothers and other female refugees, are extremely vulnerable to becoming victims of trafficking and sexual exploitation. Across Europe, many individuals have offered to help those fleeing the Russian invasion. Assistance is not far away, but neither are the risks. Joining me now from Vienna is Joe Lowry, spokesman for the International Organization for Migration, a UN agency. Thank you very much for joining us on the programme tonight, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
So you've just returned from the Poland-Moldova border, monitoring potential trafficking situations. What did you observe?
What you see on the border is, and what strikes you straight away, is the amount of women coming through, because men between 18 and 60 aren't able to leave Ukraine, but you can see them coming to the border with their families and quick goodbyes being said. And then you just see the amount of women of all ages, but mainly you see mums bringing families across, coming across with their in-laws, their aged parents. And as soon as they cross the border, they don't just become effectively refugees, they also become effectively single parents, and they're charged with providing and securing the safety and the short, medium, and long-term future for their families, because that's what mums do.
And did you see evidence of human trafficking operations when you were there?
No, we aren't actually, on the lookout for that. It generally tends to be a few weeks before you can establish that human trafficking is happening. But there are certainly all the indications that human trafficking could be happening are there. And what's extremely worrying is the amount of sort of ad hoc transport going on. Because you can imagine somebody coming across the border, a mum with their family, not knowing what to do, not speaking the language, not having perhaps any money, and in this confusion, perhaps in a train station or a bus station or on a border, being approached by somebody saying, we've got 5 seats left in a minibus, we're going to Italy or the south of France. Get in the minibus, they hand over their passports, and a few hours later, the minibus stops in the middle of nowhere, and they may be asked for $1,000 for onward transport. They haven't got it, but someone might suggest, well, I've got a friend nearby who runs a bar. You could perhaps work there for a few weeks to pay off the transport debt. And hey, look, you've got a couple of daughters. They could also work perhaps as hostesses or welcoming customers or serving drinks or dancers. And that's the way it happens. That quickly, boom, within a few hours, people are straight away at risk of real harm, of being trafficked, and also the attendant gender-based violence and other violence that can go with that. So it really is a huge problem, and it can happen very quickly. And it doesn't just happen to people who aren't careful. It can happen to anybody, because once you're vulnerable, once you lose your coping mechanisms, and once you panic for the safety of your family, you'll do anything.
Well, exactly. So what are people in those desperate situations supposed to do, and how can they distinguish between human traffickers and well-meaning people? Because we've been reporting on that a lot on CNN, other networks too, who have gone to the border and been trying to help these Ukrainians who are fleeing their country. How do they know the difference?
Absolutely. Well, there's two things to say there. One is the onus shouldn't be purely on the people who are in danger of becoming victims. They've enough to be thinking about. They've left their homes behind. They've lived through incredible trauma, and they're trying to keep their families together against huge odds. So the onus shouldn't be fully on them, but there are things they can do to protect them. And if there's one thing that we could do together as media and humanitarian organizations, is for everyone in Ukraine to memorize the number 527. 527 is the number of the National Migrant Hotline, which IOM runs. And we've doubled the staff on that hotline recently, and extended the hours, and we're getting thousands of calls. And thankfully, actually, one of the most frequent inquiries is about protection from trafficking, safe work, safe travel out of Ukraine. So people already are aware of that hotline. I'll give it again, 527. But what we can do also is, and what we are doing, is massive media awareness programs with channels like yourselves and with local TV channels in all languages. We're doing a lot of social media, and we're getting brochures and all manners of all vectors of getting information across to people. We're using. People also have to be very aware of what they're getting into, and to look out for things that don't seem normal. If they don't seem normal, they possibly are dangerous. And a couple of little hints as well that we can give people is to do things like photographing your documents and emailing them to yourself, so you can always retrieve them if you do lose your passports and other documents. Have a safe code word with your family, so you can say the word if you're on the phone, and if there's any danger, you and your family members will know that word means that there's danger. And also, we're collaborating closely with all local authorities, with governments, with police, with border authorities and community organizations, local NGOs, and so on. So there's a big effort on, but because people are very, very vulnerable, they can quickly fall prey to traffickers. And one thing to say about traffickers is that trafficking is a massive, massive illicit enterprise. $150 billion a year, perhaps even more, is amassed by traffickers, who are really the most evil people in the world. There are no words to describe people who would prey on people who've lost everything in their lives and would want to further damage and further ruin their lives. It really is, what they're doing is deplorable, but it is horribly profitable as well.
Joe Lowry, thank you very much for joining us and bringing our attention to some of the things that people really need to be watching out for in this desperate situation. Thanks.